This video is a reenactment, so if you see me at level 90 wearing gear that's only available after 300 hours of gameplay, just pretend it's not there. Final Fantasy XIV is a game that I started playing because I spent too much time at home, which in hindsight was probably a bad idea because now I spend even more time at home. But as much as I like this game, it's undeniable that it has a very interesting structure. You see, Final Fantasy XIV suffers from a rampant disease among MMO games called "it gets better after 100 hours. And while A Realm Reborn is not objectively a bad experience, it's not unfair to say that it is the weakest part of FF14. That being said, I do believe it has a lot of entertainment value, albeit not for the right reasons, but I would like to share my experience with you nonetheless. So if you're someone who doesn't have the patience to spend 140 hours to gain access to better Skyrim, you're in luck, because I've already done that so you don't have to. And if you're someone who has already completed this journey, well, I hope you'll enjoy my psychotic take on the game. So with all that out of the way, keep your hands and legs in the ride at all times, because this one is fucking weird. To start off, I think it's appropriate to briefly discuss why the game is titled A Realm Reborn. You see, although ARR is supposed to be the base game, it actually starts from patch 2.0 in the game's update history. Why is this so? Well, Final Fantasy XIV 1.0 was essentially, well, a fucking disaster. It was in fact so bad that after switching directors, the new and current one came to the conclusion that it would be easier to salvage the game by literally destroying the entire thing. So after a year of probably not seeing their families, the team remade the game from ground up and relaunched it as A Realm Reborn. And it actually did pretty well, but the fact that it is now seen as the weakest part of the game should tell you all you need to know about 1.0. All that aside, it's now time for us to create our character. Now, seeing as this is a role-playing game where I can live out my wildest fantasies, I will be playing as a regular human man. Nah, we're playing as a cute dragon girl. I would also like to play as a summoner, but I'm not too sure what the beginner classes promote into. Thankfully, however, the class names are pretty intuitive. For example, we've got Conjurer, and Conjuration is essentially the same thing as summoning, so it's pretty easy to tell which class this promotes into. And that class is White Mage. With our glorious creation finally complete, it is now time to begin our grand adventure.
Hey, you. You're finally awake.
What?
You were trying to cross the border, right? You walked right into that Imperial ambush, same as us. And that thief over there.
The fuck is happening? Welcome to Eorzea. We have political issues, we have safety hazards, but most importantly, we have cat girls. So remember how they decided to destroy the original release of this game? Well, that was actually written into the story as well. This is the Garlean Empire, and they are assholes who want to invade our glorious homeland. They also tried to drop a fucking moon onto the planet, but turns out the moon they chose was actually Bahamut's fucking house. So he got really pissed and went on a really bad rampage before this grandpa finally managed to put him down. This event is known as the 7th Umbral Calamity, which also marked the end of 1.0. So 5 years later, our hero arrives in the city of Gridania right after experiencing an LSD attack. We then set off on our quest to kill the local wildlife. We are also enlisted multiple times by the local townspeople to pick up a bunch of stuff and talk to a bunch of people. Along the way though, we make friends with two other adventurers, Papalimo and his apprentice Yida, who has her pants on way too tight. Our willingness to perform random fucking errands for people we just met gains their attention, and they invite us to join the super secret Cool Kids Club. Here, we meet the companions that will be accompanying us throughout our adventure. Thancred is an expert infiltrator with a silver tongue. He also gets fucking possessed. Y'shtola is a scholar who wants to suck up knowledge as much as the fanbase wants her to suck up something else. Urianger is a man with a strange disease that renders him incapable of speaking normally. Minfilia is a strong-hearted woman and the leader of this organization. And Tataru is a character. These are the brave scions who helped during the 7th Umbral Calamity, and they need our help to save the planet. You see, Eorzea is home to many different tribes of K-pop stans that worship different idols known as Primals. And this normally wouldn't be such a bad thing, but unfortunately, summoning Jungkook is extremely bad for the environment. To make matters worse, Primals can also brainwash people into worshipping them, which leads to our current crisis where too many people are obsessed with trying to summon fucking G-Min. Our hero, however, has a power granted by the goddess Hydaelyn known as the Echo, which gives us the ability to resist parasocial relationships. It also allows you to look into the past at random times, but it's really just when God needs you to see some exposition. Armed with this new knowledge, we are now tasked with defeating the fiery Primal Ifrit, which means it's time to talk about that gameplay. Now, you have to understand that although FF14 is an MMO, it is first and foremost a JRPG. And any fan of the genre would know that this means you're not allowed to have fun for the first few hours. In fact, you only unlock the first dungeon after 23 main story quests. But when you finally gain access to the instance missions or duties of the game, that is when you can truly see what the gameplay of Final Fantasy XIV is all about. Oh shit, gotta get out of those big ass circles. Oh wow, we gotta hide behind the rocks. Oh cool, the boss summoned a nail that someone else was supposed to kill. Duties in FF14 can be split into two categories. Trials and raids are shorter missions with 8 people that are usually against a single boss. Dungeons, on the other hand, are longer and have 3 bosses that have sub-areas you need to clear before fighting them. There's also alliance raids, but those are basically dungeons on fucking steroids, so let's forget about them for now. It's important to remember that ARR still serves as an introduction to the game, so you won't exactly be sweating your ass off, but there is one exception. Doing a dungeon for the first time can be considered a full body workout, not necessarily because the dungeons themselves are difficult, but more so because of the meta surrounding them. You see, due to it being a subscription-based game, FF14's player base consists mainly of older people who have some kind of income. But this also means that the people who play this game have a lot less free time. And if you can't tell what I'm trying to imply, it basically means that people want to do everything as fast as possible. It is essentially the norm for the tank to run straight through the dungeon and only stop when they have pulled so many mobs that they are constantly on the brink of death. This saves a lot of time, but if you started this game as a healer, then good fucking luck. I hope you wrote all that down, by the way, because it will be on the test. Although ARR's duties are good for learning the game and can even be fun with friends, make no mistake. When I said at the beginning that ARR is the weakest part of FF14, there are many reasons for that. There is a very long gap between each duty in the story, and in between them you will be doing many fascinating activities such as picking up eggs, picking up boxes, and
speaking with Minfilia at the Waking Sirens.
What's interesting is that the simple quest design and structure doesn't really change that much even in the later expansions of the game. But the reason it's less of a problem for those parts is because by the time you're there, you're so invested in the story you rarely stop and go, why am I running around and clicking on random people again? And lose immersion because you genuinely want to see what happens next. A Realm Reborn, however, struggles with this, simply because new players aren't going to be invested in a story they just started reading. I don't care about this world yet, I don't know these characters yet, like, Y'shtola, I'm sorry, you know, I know you're everyone's favorite character, but you're just not my mom yet, we're not quite there yet. This is probably the biggest reason people have trouble getting into this game, and there are a couple more, but we're gonna talk about those later. Anyway, defeating Ifrit earns us the legendary title of Guy Who Can Beat Up Ifrit and gains us the attention of the leaders of the 3 main cities of Eorzea. Kanye Rest from Gridania, Pirate Mommy from Limsa, and this little girl. She's in charge of Ul'dah. We are also noticed by the Asians, who are a mysterious group of people that are really not trying to hide the fact that they're evil. We then go on to do more random shit and
speak with Minfilia at the Waking Sirens
a bunch of times and eventually emerge victorious against 2 more primals, Titan and Garuda. Along the way, we meet Sid, a genius engineer who defected from the Garlean Empire, and Elfino, whose grandpa is the guy from the cinematic. All seems to be going well until we defeat Garuda, because this guy from the Empire shows up. Yeah, dude, I don't even like K-pop. Ooh, scary is what I would say if I was a fucking bitch. Get the Megazord! Okay, bye. Play Final Fantasy VII if you haven't. Final Fantasy VII? That must mean there are 7 primals. No, Elfino, that's just a fucking game he got that robot from. This man is none other than Gaius Van Balsac. He is the one in charge of the Empire's Legion that is currently attempting to invade Eorzea. Again. This time, he's planning to use this giant war machine known as the Ultima weapon that is powered by the blood of K-pop. And unfortunately for us, we kind of just fed it a full 3-course meal.
This realm founders for want of a ruler with true power. The power to cast down icons.
So aided by the armies of the 3 cities, it is now time for us to stop the Empire and save our homeland from invasion once more, which means it's now time for the silliest part of ARR. Before we head into this section of the video, I would like to preface it by saying that many of the things I'm about to show you are being patched at the time this video is being made. So I'd rather you view this chapter as a museum of all the wacky shit they randomly decided to change 9 years later. To start off, let us look at the first trial against Ratatin, a strategic genius and powerful warrior who is one of Gaius's strongest and most loyal generals. I guess he shouldn't have used that funny shield build from Dark Souls. Although I mentioned before that A Realm Reborn's duties are where the gameplay truly gets to shine, they also have some very bizarre shit. For instance, during Titan's boss fight, if you accidentally fall off the cliff, I hope you like watching movies, because you can't be revived forever. The final boss of Copperbell Mines destroys this wall so it can spawn in an ad, but the ad just walks off to go play fucking Minecraft. That's very helpful of you. But nothing in the game can really compare to Castrum Meridianum and the Praetorium, which are the two final dungeons of ARR. These two duties are the funniest things in the game to me, although I don't think they intended for that. For some unknown reason, they decided to make both these dungeons have double the amount of players that are normally allowed and have a bunch of unskippable cutscenes scattered throughout them. This concept was so interesting that they never did it ever again. Thank fucking God. The Praetorium takes over 40 minutes to clear on average. That is more than 2 times the length of a regular dungeon. Unless you're playing in French. Then you can save 1 minute.
Les hommes tremblent devant les primordiaux.
What the fuck are you saying?
Pourquoi ne pas les appeler comme lors de la bataille de Carteneau?
Let's have a pop quiz. What's the most difficult part of A Realm Reborn? If your answer was A, then congratulations. You now have to like and subscribe. Remember how I talked about people who play this game wanting to do everything as quickly as possible? Well, what that translates to here is essentially a fucking Disneyland parade through the Imperial base. I still distinctly remember laughing very hard the first time I did Castrum, and this is supposed to be a serious part of the story. That aside, we managed to fight our way to Livia, who is another one of Gaius's generals, so just like the general before her, we beat her to a pulp. This gains us access to the Praetorium, which is Gaius's main base of operations. Our next opponent, however, is Gaius's right-hand man, Nero. I'm starting to notice a trend here. Okay, so it's now time for our showdown against Gaius and the Ultima weapon, and he actually puts up a good fight this time, but with the help of the goddess Hydaelyn, we finally put his foolish ambitions to rest. But there is one final foe we must defeat alone, the one who was pulling the strings the entire time, the very same man who was behind the 7th Umbral Calamity, who is none other than Thancred. No, I'm just kidding, it's not actually him. Who is none other than the Ashen Lahabria. Okay, I guess that solves the problem. And with that, we have reached the end of A Realm Reborn. A normal person would move on to the postgame and continue on to the Heavensward expansion. But I am no normal man. I am a fucking cheapskate, so you can bet your ass I'm going to milk the shit out of this free trial. So now that we have completed the main story, what is there left for us to do? Well, for starters, there are 19 classes in the game. The free trial gives us access to 13. And the beautiful thing about FF14 is that you can be any class at any time. You just need to level them up individually. Like any other online game, Final Fantasy XIV has dailies in the form of its roulette system, which I can only describe as paradoxically good. Consider this, before patch 6.1, all main story dungeons in A Realm Reborn needed you to enter with 3 other people. But what happens if there aren't 3 other people at the exact same point in the story that you are? Well, by having a leveling roulette system, the pool of players that can join you expands greatly from people who need to clear the dungeon for the story to anyone who is trying to level up a class. It's actually pretty clever, but there is a downside to all of this. One of the things we haven't really talked about so far is the rotations in FF14, and by the time you're level 50, for the most part, every class is pretty fun and unique. Unless you're a Dark Knight, then you have no rights. But when your level is synced back down to do a low-level dungeon, you lose access to every move you unlocked after that level. And because the low-level dungeons naturally have the highest number of players that can access them, you will be getting them a lot. I hope you enjoy counting to 2. And for classes with eldritch rotations that completely change every 5 levels like Black Mage, this is especially agonizing. On top of that, after we hit level 50 in a class, in order to get the best gear for our level, we have to exchange tomestones for them. How do we get these tomestones, you ask? Yeah, remember these 2 dungeons? I hope you like them because you will be redoing them a lot. But apart from grinding, we can now also access the extreme content of the game. These are rehashes of the trials we previously completed with their difficulties down to 11. Clearing these trials are a true test of skill, requiring careful planning and execution as well as a reliable team with good coordination. Unfortunately, however, I am a psychopath in real life, and what this means is that I do not have 7 friends, so this content is inaccessible to me. So instead, I will gamble my life savings away in the gold saucer and spend the next 100 hours in crafter hell. You have to understand that the true endgame of Final Fantasy XIV isn't the extreme content or getting every class to the maximum level. It's getting your character some cool swag. But we don't have access to the market board on the free trial, so the only way to obtain cool outfits is to craft them ourselves. We can't buy crafting materials from the market either, so we're going to have to gather them on our own too. On top of that, we need to actually level our crafter classes up in order to unlock the recipes we need, and there are 8 of them. So the easiest way to tie all of this up is with the question of should you play this game? And the answer is maybe. I don't know. If you are somebody who enjoys video games in general and find yourself feeling bored while waiting for new games to come out but also don't want to spend 8 hours a day playing League of Legends, this game is a good way to relax, even more so if you have friends to play it with. But if you are poor or simply don't have the patience or time to sit through A Realm Reborn, I really don't blame you. But when people tell you the game gets better after 100 hours, it's not a good excuse, but at the very least, they are telling the truth. And also, my opinion is just my opinion. This is the first MMO I've really gotten into since fucking MapleStory, and that was a really long time ago. A Realm Reborn will probably never be as good as the rest of the game, and it's kind of a shit show sometimes, but I can honestly say that I don't regret finishing it. Before I end off, I just want to take a second to say thank you for all the support on the Neo Toei video. You might have noticed that things have kind of slowed down on this channel in terms of like the long form content I've been making, and I know I said before that it's because it's kind of hard to come up with ideas, but I've also recently been really trying to push myself to improve the quality of the stuff I put out, which obviously means it takes a lot more time to write and edit and make the whole thing. And the Neo Toei video was kind of like my first attempt at that, and I'm just very grateful to see how receptive people were towards it, and I just wanted to properly say thank you. I'd also like to thank all my friends who were in this video that helped with the footage. I really appreciate it. I'll probably put some credits on the screen. But yeah, thanks for watching my fucking video. I know it takes forever to make anything, but I hope whatever I make is worth the wait. So as usual, any likes or shares or subscriptions are greatly appreciated. Until we see each other again.